Max Stirner challenged the foundational principles of modern society, like morality, religion, and state authority. This also meant challenging the way philosophers dealt with the many economic changes that were happening at the time. This essay takes a deep dive into how an egoist would view economic relations and what an egoist would prioritize within economic relations. Essentially, the question being asked here is, what would be an egoist approach to the economic relations within capitalism? And this is a difficult question to answer because egoism isn't really about that. However, I will try to answer it as best I can by looking at what the historical economic conditions of Stirner's lifetime were, then how Marx, as a representative of philosophy around that time that differed greatly from many others, responded to the changing economic conditions, and, well, why it's kind of just all nothing to Stirner. So basically, we're going to look into how Stirner's egoism would interpret economic conditions and systems, and then try to offer a unique approach to the complex relations involved in maintaining some kind of fundamental value system which allows for human coexistence in an economic sense. To introduce egoism into the mix here, it might prove useful to talk about the economic relations Max Stirner was experiencing during his lifetime. Max Stirner lived during a period of profound economic and social transformation. The first half of the 19th century was characterized by the rapid industrialization and urbanization that swept across Europe, which fundamentally altered the fabric of society. This era was marked by both progress and turmoil, which obviously significantly influenced the philosophical debates of the time, including those of Stirner. The Industrial Revolution, which began in the late 18th century and continued into the 19th century, was a driving force behind the economic conditions of Stirner's time. The revolution brought about significant technological advancements, including the steam engine, mechanized textile production, and improved iron-making processes. These innovations led to increased production and efficiency, urbanization, and changes in labor, of course. The economic transformations brought by the Industrial Revolution exacerbated social and economic inequalities and really pushed issues like wealth disparities, shitty working conditions, and subsequently shitty living conditions for many people. The economic conditions of the time also gave rise to various political and social movements. Workers began organizing to demand better wages, shorter working hours, and improved working conditions. In Britain, the Chartist movement sought political reforms to extend voting rights to working class men, and economic hardship and social discontent fueled uprisings across Europe. These economic upheavals of the 19th century spurred the development of various new economic theories and ideologies. In response to the inequalities of capitalism, socialist and communist ideologies gained traction. Figures like Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels critiqued capitalist exploitation and proposed revolutionary changes to establish a classless society. Amidst the economic and social upheavals of the 19th century, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels developed a comprehensive critique of capitalism and articulated a vision for a socialist society. Marx observed that industrial capitalism, driven by the Industrial Revolution, intensified economic inequalities and exploitation. He argued that capitalism inherently produced class divisions between the bourgeoisie, so the owners of capital, and the proletariat, or in other words, the working class. The bourgeoisie, according to Marx, extracted surplus value from the labor of the proletariat, leading to wealth accumulation for the few at the expense of the many. Marx's theory of historical materialism posited that the economic base, or the mode of production and class relation, shapes the superstructure, like laws, politics, ideology, of society. He viewed history as a series of class struggles which culminated in revolutionary change, or would eventually culminate in revolutionary change. Marx predicted that the inherent contradictions of capitalism, such as overproduction, economic crises, and the concentration of wealth, would lead to a proletarian revolution. Marx envisioned a socialist society where the means of production are collectively owned and controlled by the proletariat. He argued that this would eliminate the exploitation inherent in capitalism and pave the way for a classless society, or communism. In the Communist Manifesto, which was co-authored by Friedrich Engels, Marx called for workers of the world to unite and assert their political power to overthrow the bourgeoisie's rule and establish a socialist system. Stirner didn't really think socialism or capitalism was a thing. Stirner viewed them both as systems which subjugate his ego to abstract ideals, whether they be private property or collective ownership. Their point is to diminish personal autonomy. He criticized socialist movements for merely replacing one form of coercion, which in this case was capitalist exploitation, with another, which was collective authority. But Stirner did not have any good solutions either, and that is why he gets a lot of shit from people still to this day. But let me get a little bit more into that, because I really think people just don't get it, or fear it, or want to hold on to some spook to rationalize something they don't want to accept about themselves. In fact, my favorite case of that is the case of Saint Max. Saint Max is a chapter of the German ideology dedicated to Max Stirner, obviously a very famous book by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. The entire chapter is basically one giant hissy fit, which includes a whole lot of ad hominem attacks against Stirner. They refer to him mockingly as Saint Max, and the tone is like listening to your annoying ex who hates you but doesn't want to let you leave. They focus on Stirner's egoism and its implications for revolutionary theory and practice. So they look at Stirner's ideas on property, morality, and the state within this context. Marx critiques Stirner's philosophical thought as fundamentally flawed in addressing the systemic nature of economic exploitation. For him, the focus on individual autonomy overlooks the collective struggle inherent in class dynamics. He also can't seem to grasp Stirner's emphasis on the individual's subjective experience, which is seen by Marx as an abstraction that fails to address concrete material conditions. Another one of his critiques is Stirner's views on economic systems as spooks, which exist to subjugate individuals. Marx sees them as dynamic processes that shape human history. Which, no offense, buddy, but why can't they be both? He also thinks that Stirner's egoism fails to address what he called systemic alienation, which he describes as a pervasive and institutionalized estrangement individuals feel from their labor, products, and social roles within a societal system. He asserts that egoism offers a superficial solution by encouraging individuals to reclaim personal autonomy without changing the underlying economic structures that cause alienation. To understand the validity of an egoist perspective on economic systems, let me explain the major differences between Marx and Stirner. Even though they are both critical of existing societal structures, they obviously diverge significantly in their foundational premises. Stirner's philosophy centers on the ego and his ownness or individual power, not on collective struggle or any ideals for revolution. For Stirner, societal constructs, including economic systems, are tools of domination that subjugate the individual. Simple enough, right? So what we have here is an anti-idealist and anti-materialist sort of borderline situation. It offers an alternative to idealist and materialist notions by sort of connecting them. I have explained this before in another essay, which you can find in the chapter Dialectics and the Nature of Reality and Knowledge, and I will blend in the video where you can find it. So Marx focuses on the collective and the structural dynamics of society, and he views economic systems as the base upon which the social, political, and ideological superstructure is built. But let me say some shit about that. Maybe I'm dumb, but aren't the fundamental driving units of said society, so like workers and the bourgeoisie, still people? like individuals, and like don't they kind of need to think? And aren't the things they think influenced by like various influences in society? Like, doesn't that mean that each singular unit is influenced by concepts and ideals that are being planted in their messed up class struggling minds? And like, doesn't that mean that egoism or shedding spooks and allowing oneself to follow desire is like actually kind of a good idea? Shinna criticizes socialism for replacing one form of domination with another, so collective authority. For Shinna, any system that subordinates the individual to a collective entity undermines personal freedom and self-determination, and that dissatisfaction and self-denial will ultimately lead to the perpetuation of the same bullshit. So we have to focus on the individual first. That is all he's saying. In Shinna's framework, money can be seen as one of the many societal constructs that wield power over individuals. It's like something that got blown way out of proportion. Money, in its conventional sense, is imbued with abstract value. It dictates relationships and social dynamics. So for Shinna, it's a yucky, spooky thing that confuses people and controls them psychologically and idealistically. In Shinna's philosophical framework, money would be some neutral medium of exchange, but a potent symbol of societal power dynamics and psychological control. You remember what Marx said about alienation? This is the shit that alienates workers. This is the thing that actually alienates and controls people in society. Their labor. That's the biggest spook of them all. The confusion created by external value systems is what ultimately makes people complacent. It alienates them from their value as a person, as an ego. It reduces them to something of use, to some external entity. That is real alienation. In this perspective, money has no tangible worth. It is an exaggerated human, idealistic delusion that pretends nature isn't going to do its thing either way. You can take it, use it, deal it, make it, ignore it. You can do all kinds of things with it. You are in control of the value you give to it. And if you want it, then get it. But don't be surprised when all the laborers reclaim their autonomy and rush your ass. So through this lens, one could say that money pretends that it dictates not only economic transactions, but also interpersonal relationships and social hierarchies. And the reason why it's so successful with this delusion is precisely because we are ignoring the individual's needs and interests. So let's talk about that. In Deleuzian terms, money can be understood as a deterritorializing force within societal structures. Money, in its conventional form, operates as a signifier of value and exchange that detaches individuals from their immediate desires and personal interests, thereby redirecting their focus toward abstract economic goals and social norms. Deleuze and Guattari's concept of deterritorialization describes the process by which social institutions and money impose abstract codes and standards that override individual desire and potential. Money deterritorializes individuals from their immediate environment and personal aspirations by embedding them with a broader economic system that is governed by market forces and societal expectations and hierarchies. Deleuze's notion of control societies resonates here as well. In these societies, individuals are governed not by overt coercion, but by internalized norms and aspirations tied to economic success and social status, perpetuating a cycle of conformity and alienation from one's authentic desires. So, within a Deleuzian analysis, an ego's critique of money underscores how economic systems deterritorialize and then reterritorialize individuals' subjectivities, shaping their identities and desires in accordance with capitalist imperatives. Money becomes a focal point through which social structures exert control over personal autonomy, which blurs the lines between genuine self-expression and conformist behavior dictated by economic incentives. So, let's end this with some ideas of how else we can approach economic relations, systems, institutions, and units of imaginary value. And I think the best way to do this would be to start from the individual. What am I? From an egoist standpoint, the ideal economic relations are those that allow egos to exist in a state of perpetual ownness, meaning you're here. You are as much allowed to take up space as anyone else, and your space is your concern. These hierarchies are imaginary. They don't exist. If you steal Uncle Bob's 5 ounces of, it no longer belongs to him. In fact, it never did. It belongs to no one, and your use or consumption of it does not make it yours either. So, what are you then? Well, you're nothing really. Your ownness. Everything after that is up to you. So, subsequently, you will ask yourself, what do I want? And this one is difficult, because mostly we're kind of stuck in a perpetual state of Stockholm Syndrome, and can't really tell the forest for the trees, but we know the basics. So let's go from there, in baby steps. You stole your Uncle Bob's, so now what? Do you want to use it or share it with someone? Sell it, give it to someone who, needs it more? I mean, it's up to you. But you should consider, what if someone has a problem with that theft? What if they catch you? Since there are authorities, what's going to happen? What if you end up in jail? That's definitely a reasonable concern, So you would naturally have to ask yourself this. Are you willing to take the risk or not? Same goes for any institution that imposes regulations, whether a state or a market monopoly. An egoist perspective of economics means looking at the psychosocial implications of a controlled mind. What are the mechanisms of control? How much agency is the individual capable of reclaiming? What does it mean to reclaim power, including labor power, or even the power to participate in trade? How flexible are economic arrangements? Embracing ownness in economic systems would look something like this. Economic relations would prioritize agency and autonomy. It's kind of like how nature works, without people in it. Each person acts based on their own interests, and transactions can be beneficial, but there's no kind of delusion of some guarantee that it will be okay and you won't get messed with. Also, let's get real about what property rights really are. That would definitely be an egoist thing to do. Property rights exist because someone was like, I am too tired, or I am too weak, or whatever, to engage in natural interpersonal relations, so I'll just get me an army and make sure I come out on top. So the egoist would say that property is obviously a construct and ownership is fluid, but that doesn't mean ignoring material condition. Also, value wouldn't be assigned based on market dynamics and societal norms. Egoism means deconstructing and literally ignoring these arbitrary assignments of value if they don't serve you. Egoism also involves assessing risks and making choices that align with one's own interests, even if they go against societal norms. This requires a deeper understanding of the consequences of one's actions, karma. So for those of you that will get your panties in a bunch over not having any solid solutions for anything, I will indulge you, but that isn't really an egoist thing to do, and I doubt Jenna would ever have done it. Just keep that in mind. I am simply humoring you. Implementing egoist principles in economic relations would look something like: Number 1, decentralizing networks and moving toward peer-to-peer exchanges, maybe through stuff like blockchain technology. 2, collaborative platforms or something like sharing economy. 3, education set on empowerment from social norms, and the fostering of individuality for the sake of agency building. And in terms of legal and social frameworks, well, I guess we would just kind of need to believe in the human capacity for reason and empathy after a process of de-spookification, and then go from there. Conflict mediation and punishment does not have to be a centralized process. So, Max Jana's egoism provides a radical critique of conventional economic thought. It challenges the power dynamics and abstractions that underpin modern economies. By viewing money and economic systems through an egoist lens, one can maybe go so far as to envision a model of economic interaction that prioritizes autonomy, the development of agency, and some kind of small-scale voluntary cooperation. But again, that isn't what Jana did. What he did do was to compel us to rethink our relationships and interactions within this economic spookland. And thereby he broke all the theories mentioned here down to the most fundamental aspect and central problem. There is no economy without the individual. There aren't even ideals or a material reality of consequence without the individual. So why the hell wouldn't you start there? If you like this video and want to see more, I ask you to stay with me for just a second and listen to this message. I absolutely love this work and I love making these videos, but I also provide for my family, meaning I need to make money. To be able to continue my work, I ask you to consider signing up for my Patreon or Substack so that I can reduce the time I have to spend giving my labor away to someone who doesn't deserve it nearly as much as you guys. There are various other ways to support me as well, and I will share the links in the description. I would like to thank everyone who has supported me so far. You guys are amazing. I really do appreciate you so much. I would also like to share with you a new project, which is part of the study network, which the members of the Recurring Paradox community and I are working on. I have created a brand new e-zine which seeks to spotlight any and all work that focuses on Max Jana egoism or egoist anarchism. This can include videos, essays, podcast episodes, art, music, and much more. If you would like to submit some work to this e-zine, please check out the link in the description. We are also working on a Jana library, which will pool all research, essays, books, videos, and other work on Jana which already exists. If you can't contribute, I totally understand. Then I will simply ask you to join the free community on Patreon to always be up to date on what's going on and how it's going, and share, comment, like, whatever. Thank you again.
Goodbye!